Hey you guys, welcome back to another video. The inspiration for this video came from two videos that I uploaded recently. I started doing more bartending videos on my channel. You should definitely go check them out. Shows a lot of in-depth things, what I do at work. So I was thinking, after doing these videos, I have worked in so many restaurants and bars over the years. Some in Nanaimo, where I grew up, and here in Vancouver, where I'm currently living. I realized I have had so many different kinds of bosses, some nice, some cool, some different, odd, and some that are very, very mean. Which brings me to this story today. This is the story of the worst boss I have ever had. So back about 6 years ago, when I worked at a restaurant in Nanaimo, I applied at this restaurant. I don't think I should say the name, but I went and applied. I had my interview and I got hired and I started the next day. I started my job and everything was just going super great. I was super excited that I got hired there. Everything seemed to be so good, but the head boss was a total bitch, like unbelievably. But it was a very progressive bitchiness kind of way that she would do things. But on day 3, I remember going in, they had candles on the tables, like fresh candles that we would have to light. So it came time that one of the candles burnt out. I didn't know where they were. I went up and asked so-and-so, let's just call her boss lady. No, actually, you know what? That's too nice. Let's call her, she resembled the Penguin Man. So you know what? In honor of you, so-and-so, we are gonna call you Penguin Man. One of the candles had burnt out and I approached Penguin Man and I had asked her, I was like, hey, where would I get more candles? And she was all like, her response was, you should know where they are by now. And you know, I'm like, well, I've only been in the building a couple days. How am I supposed to know? Like I don't just automatically know where everything is right away. And she was like, they're over there. So, holy shit, I was like, okay. So I'm like walking over there to get the candles and in my head, I'm like, what the fuck, you know? So anyways, get the candles out, work my shift. That was the end of the day. And yeah, I kind of just realized, you know, maybe I'm getting into something that is gonna be a little bit scary. A couple days later, I go in for my next shift and I go into the bathroom to get changed. It's still before the restaurant is even opened up. And I'm in there and I realized while I was in there, the lighting is really good. Like it honestly, it just made my body look good and my face really nice. At the time I was single. So I was like, oh, this is a good, you know, opportunity to maybe like take some pics for like a profile picture or to post on Grindr for any of you guys that know what that is. It's almost like Tinder, but for gay guys. So I'm in there and I'm in there for probably like 15 minutes, which is a little while for sure. And I came out and she was sitting there and it's still like 20 minutes before the restaurant is even opening and like nothing's happening. So it didn't even really matter that I was in there that long. And she looks at me and she's like, you were in there for a long time. And I was like, yeah, I was just, you know, taking a couple pictures for my Grindr. And she was like, just like bulges her eyes right out of her face and like whips her head back and she was like, and I saw her make that reaction and I was just like, what's wrong? And she's like, you don't need to tell me about your sex life. And I was like, I didn't. And she's like, well, it's related to that. I guess the fact that I had mentioned Grindr just freaked her out because she just thinks it's this holy gay sex app, which is kind of true, but I didn't mention any of that. I was just like, holy shit, woman, like, relax, you know? Yeah, that was the second one that I was just like, Jesus, man, this woman has no chill. So anyways, later that night, we're like full on service. It's busy. I'm in the kitchen. I'm about to run someone else's food and it's 2 bowls of soup that this table had ordered for their appetizer. It wasn't my table. I was just running the 2 bowls of soup to another table, another server's table. And it is up to the server to make sure that the table is preset for whatever dish that they have coming. So the server that was serving that table should have made sure there was 2 spoons ready for them. And when I brought the 2 bowls of soup, there wasn't. So I put the soups down and I saw they had no spoons. So I tell them, I'll just be right back. I'm just gonna go get you guys a couple spoons. The penguin man heard that, and so when I was going to go get the spoons, which is back in the kitchen area, she follows me and fucking big old jiggly ass body comes gruntling in, and she was all like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm getting them spoons." And she's like, "No, you need to make sure you go look at the table to make sure they're preset, then go get the server, and then bring the food." And again, it's like, what? Like, I can't. Like, there's no time for any of that, which is true. Like, if that was the course of action through bringing food to a table, the service would take 10 times longer. That makes no sense. She's just mental. So she comes and gets pissed off at me because the server did not do her job and bring the spoons to the table. And she's like, "What are you doing? Like, you can't be doing this, blah, blah, blah." And man, I'm just like, from what happened at the beginning of the day to this, I was like, this is bullshit, man. Like, I started to realize that I'm probably gonna get blamed for everything, whether it's my fault or not. Hello, gorgeous, by the way. So anyways, end of service from that day. I go home again and I'm like, just thinking to myself, like, Jesus, like, I'm broke. I can't really leave this job because I have my car payments. You know, I have rent, I have to buy food. Like, I didn't have any money and I was in no position to quit this job at all, even though I was like, I need to. A couple days later for my next shift, I go in, and the way it worked was the servers would come and she would come about 10-15 minutes later. So our jobs were to like sweep the restaurant, set everything up with the menus, light the candles, which I knew where they were, loud and clear. So we're setting up, she comes in, and she sits down at her little desk, which is like out in the restaurant, which is super weird. We're getting ready and I'm just sweeping, and then I put the menus out, and the menus are like long and hard, and it's really quiet in the restaurant and kind of awkward. So me being me, like, I like to, you know, make some jokes or, you know, say something funny to kind of lighten the mood, because it was like dead quiet for like half an hour and it's so awkward. So I have one of the menus in my hands that I'm putting on the table, and Danny she also looked like Danny DeVito, but the penguin man was sitting like 15 feet away, and I was like, "Hey, have you ever hit anyone with these menus? Like, haha." She's just like, "What did I tell you about saying these things to me?" And I was just like, I just didn't even say anything back. I was just quiet. I was like, you know what? You know, I just kept putting the menus out. And then it just made me really awkward. It's like, how do you recover from that? Like, you can't just carry on, you know, a conversation. So I just got really, really, really quiet because she just blew up at me for saying, "Hey, have you ever hit anyone with a menu?" Like, she just had no personality, no laughter. Excuse me. And yeah, so I finished putting out the menus and then I finished sweeping, and she's like, she just starts talking to me. She's like, "You know what? I'm sick of this. I'm sick of you thinking you can say whatever you want to me, blah, blah, blah." She just like took everything so personally and so like offside. She was a total bitch. So through that day, that was the only thing that happened that day. Thank God. Because like at this point, I'm ready to push her down the stairs because she's just such a big. So then the very next day, I go in, same kind of thing. We're getting set up, blah, blah, blah. Like, the usual, but I went in a little bit early to order food. The kitchen was always open, getting ready, and if the staff wanted food, they were okay to make them some food, as long as it's easy. So I ordered a burger. In the kitchen, there was this little area where the staff ate. Meanwhile, the penguin man is sitting at the bar, like her little desk area, and I was just eating it in the kitchen. And this is still before the restaurant is even open, but the kitchen's totally okay with making me food. So I order my food, I get set up at the little spot, and I'm eating, like, hoping fucking she doesn't come back here. But she does. She comes storming in, and she like walks right up to me, and she's like, "Why are you eating here?" And I'm just like, "Well, because this is where staff eat, isn't it?" And she was like, "No, if you want to eat food before the restaurant opens, you go eat at the bar." And I was just like, all I said was okay, because like, whatever. I'm not gonna start a fight with her at the beginning of the shift. But at the same time, like she was sitting at the bar, and there was like 4 seats at this little bar in the restaurant. And like hell to the no, I'm gonna sit at the bar and go eat next to her. Like she's a total prick, man. Like it would be the most awkward thing eating food next to her, because I bet you she would just rag on something. She would be like, "You're eating too loud. Like what's wrong with you?" Or "Why did you order that? There's better things on the menu." Like, but the main reason was I just did not want to sit next to her. So, anyways, later that day, the same shift, after she scolds me for not sitting right next to her when I clearly would not want to. Yeah, anyways, later that shift, again, it's the middle of service, roughly, I think more towards the end, and we're clearing away plates. So I come in, I bring in the plates, bring them into dish, and one of the other girls that has been working there for, I think it was like 5 or 6 years, it had been some time. She had a big handful of dishes, and I guess she felt comfortable to carry them all. So she comes in the door into the back and drops one and then drops them all. Like they all fall on the ground. So there's like 6 plates that just shattered on the ground. And in my head, I'm like, oh, here we go. So Penguin Man comes out from the restaurant, comes storming in. I think in her head, she was ready for it to be me that dropped them. And she was ready to tear me a new one, let me tell you. But she saw that it was her star server slash friend that dropped all the plates, and she sees them all. And she's like, looks up at the girl and she's like, okay, just, make sure you get a broom, clean it up. And then she walks back out. And I was like, holy, if that was me that did that, she would have like throat punched me or like threatened to stab me. Not literally, but she would have freaked out and just like lost her mind, and she wouldn't have shut up. So after all of this stuff that has happened leading up to this, like I think I've been working there about a week and a half now, week and a half, 2 weeks. And I couldn't even handle the fact that she was so calm with her other server and what she would have done to me. It was like 2 minutes later, the Penguin Man goes walking by me. I said, I said it really quietly because there was tables. I was like, if that was me, you would have freaked out. And she was like, no, you don't even know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? And I was like, if I dropped all of those plates, you would have gotten extremely mad at me. She was like, you just don't even know what you're talking about. Get away from me. So I walked away. And at that point, I was just like laughing to myself. I'm like, of course she would have gotten so mad. She had this thing that she would always say to me. She would be like, you know what? You're just not gonna make it. You're just not gonna make it. She would say it twice over, and the second time would be a little bit louder than the first. So that's what I was hearing in my head as she said she wouldn't have said anything to me and it would have been fine. I'm like, bull shit. So then, end of the shift, I'm going home. I'm saving as much money as I can to at least pay my rent. Like I need money to pay my rent at the end of the month, pay my car insurance, have a little bit of money for food, and I'm like, I'm getting the out of here, man. This job sucks. It's my next shift. It's 2 or 3 days later. I got hired with a group of new people because I'm guessing they must have had some sort of like staff walkout or something. Like everyone must have been tired of this bitch. So there was 3 of us that got hired at the same time. And one of the other girls that got hired, she was super sweet, really nice. But she was a brand new server. Like she had never really served before. So she was totally new. She didn't really know much, but she did a pretty good job. I mean, she was really nice and followed direction, but she wasn't too confident in really what she was doing. My next shift, I'm working with her, and you can tell the girl she's having some troubles, and I'm doing just fine. And then so the Penguin Man, just to get under my skin, comes up to me and she's like, you know what? Reagan over here is doing so much better than you. She is head and shoulders way above you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, she's not. Like, are you crazy? Like, you could tell she would just say things to me to just really upset me. So yeah, she told me, oh, Reagan is just much better than you. She's doing a much better than you. Even though you're experienced, she's just head and shoulders way above you. I was just like, whatever. So I just walked away, And I just couldn't help but to think, like, I am giving your customers amazing service, and this is how you're treating the people that have to be the face of your restaurant. Okay, hold on, you guys. I gotta heat up my coffee. It's getting cold. And this story is too good to stop. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. But anyways, a couple days later, my next shift again. So again, it's the middle of service. Things are getting busy. I'm running around. And she comes up to me to try and tell me something. But I'm on the monitor, ringing in a table full of food. And she comes up right here. She's like really short. So it was like, I'm taller and she's about this high. And she says something to me, but I'm like concentrating to ring something in. So she says it to me, and then half a second later, she's like, hello. And I was like, what? Like, you know, fuck, I'm concentrating, man. Like, but it's not like she said something to me and it was like multiple seconds. It was like a fraction of a second later, and she's like, hello. And so I was like, what? And then blah, 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 blah. She tells me her thing. Okay. So I walk, I'm like, well, I can't even remember what she told me. She had to tell me something about a table. Fine. So I'm continuing work throughout the shift. And then it was about 25 minutes later, she comes up to me and she says something to me, but it was, excuse me. So she comes up to me and says something to me, but it was so rude. It was unbelievable. And by this time, I had just had enough. So we're standing near the bar, and she said it to me because there was no people sitting at the bar. And I can't remember what she said, but I remember just being so mad. And I took a step back and I was like, what? You know, and I said it kind of loud because I was just like, what are you talking about? And then she's like, shh. And I was like, no. And I said it really loud and took a step back again because she stepped closer to me. And she was like, shh. She was like, let's go outside and talk. And I was like, Christ, man, I was so mad. So we go outside and talk, and I just vent to her about everything. I was like, you're a bitch. You are so rude to me. You clearly are nicer to all the girls than you are me. You blame me for everything. And she denied all of it. She denied everything because like all of these things I remembered. And she's like, no, I didn't do that. No, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I quit. So I left the job and I was out the door that night. And I even remembered all of this shit until this day. And it's been 4 years. She was an absolute like the worst boss that I think a male could ever have. So yeah, that's my story of having the worst boss of my life. A couple days later, I was just like, oh man, I was just getting fired up inside. Like, she was such a bitch. What? How can you treat people like this? So I wrote the nastiest review on Google and a few other platforms. Like, I was like, she's a bitch. Like, I was totally honest. Like, I said the food is great. You know, if you want to go for a good meal, go. It's amazing food. But if you do not want to support a boss that treats their employees like and it's just a total then do not go in. And it was like an essay. I hope she saw it because she was the absolute worst. God, I gotta catch my breath after that. So anyways, you guys, I am so happy I got to tell you this story, reliving the worst days of my life in this restaurant. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. So please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye guys.